into the room. You're free to just be you. Tell me your story, and we will go exploring. Let's explore together.
Hello and welcome to Sack in the City. Today we are going to be discussing several issues that absolutely need to be discussed. Personally, I always found it very interesting in our society how we do one of two things with sexuality. We either make it some greasy cheeseburger that we hand to this blonde chick in a bikini riding a mechanical bull, or we sweep it under the rug completely. My personal opinion is not really a fan of either one of those. It is absolutely a subject that needs to be discussed. And here today to discuss it with us is Whitney. Whitney, welcome so much. Welcome to Sack in the City. So,
Thank you.
Whitney, you went through puberty early. Is that correct?
I did.
Yes. How old were you when you started going, your body started changing?
I was about 9 when I started developing, and by the age of 10 years old, I had about a C-cup, a very full C-cup breast, hips, thighs. I was a little...
At 10?
At 10 years old.
Wow.
I had started my cycle that year in the 5th grade, and I was very much a little girl in a woman's body.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask real quick, because that is a young age to start puberty for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Is that something that runs in your family, so to speak, or?
No, not
Okay.
necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah, my mom, my mom did not start puberty nor her period until about 15, 16 years old.
Okay.
And so it was very...
Which is a little bit more of the average.
Right. It
Sure.
wasn't anticipated.
Okay.
And it was certainly uncomfortable, I think, for everyone involved, both
Sure.
myself and the adults, not
Sure.
really knowing what to do with that.
Did you ever have a training bra?
No, I went...
Straight to a real bra?
I distinctly remember it was over the summer of 5th grade. Mm-hmm. That I had developed. So, and it was very painful.
I'm sure.
It was painful, and a lot of scarring and tearing on my chest, and by the time I had walked into 6th grade, I had completely changed.
You said something that I really, really want to talk about, is that you were a little girl in a woman's body.
Yeah.
That's a really powerful comment, and I want to talk more about that, because you're right. You were a child.
I was.
But you had breasts and hips and everything, like you said. Mm-hmm. So, did you feel that you were accepted as a child or as a woman?
I think that with my family, mm-hmm. I was still their little girl. Mm-hmm. And but as far as society, and especially with my peers, I definitely was different. Right. I definitely stood out. Mm-hmm. I suddenly had the attention of grown men, mm-hmm. the attraction of grown men, mm-hmm. the lust of grown men, mm-hmm. and that was. I would have to say that was scary. It was confusing and scary. I didn't know and understand why I was being given the attention that I was, why I was being looked at that way.
Right.
And then from my peers, especially in school, the dress code in school mm-hmm. didn't apply for girls like me.
Interesting. Yeah. Can you elaborate on that, though?
Yeah. Especially in the summertime in Sacramento, we know how hot it can be. I'm sweating bullets right now. And thank you. And
fanboy.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was difficult for me. Not only was I not allowed to wear what the other girls wore to compensate for the fact of the heat, but because of all the hormonal changes happening as well, there was this element of embarrassment that,
Right.
when I would wear those clothes, I would get that attention, and I would even get in trouble. I'd gotten in trouble from my teachers. And then there was also, because of those hormonal changes, a lot of, I went through a period where I was perspiring a lot.
Right.
Trying to find the right antiperspirants.
Yeah.
And, because I had to cover
Puberty.
up
Yeah.
in a really hot weather, often I would perspire all the way down my shirt, and I would have, a wet mark all the way down my shirt from
Sweat
my sweat.
streak,
And
yeah.
that was humiliating for me. And I knew that it was because I had no other way to cool my body. So there
Right.
was this coupled embarrassment of my perspiration along with the shame of knowing that it was because my body was different
Right.
and it wasn't accepted
Right.
like the other girls were.
Now, you had said that grown men were looking at you.
Yeah.
Obviously, I can't speak for you, but that sounds highly uncomfortable.
It was really uncomfortable.
Did you ever communicate any of that to your parents?
No.
No. Just kept it to yourself. And did you understand that they were checking you out?
I did. I knew that they were looking at me through very, sexual eyes. I knew that they were feasting on my body.
So you didn't talk to your parents about it?
No.
You probably didn't even know how to approach it, right? I mean,
Didn't.
how do you even bring that up?
Right.
Especially before knowing it. Did you feel that you were properly educated as far as sexuality and your body and puberty and all of those things?
No, I wasn't. And, my mom was really young when she had me. And so I think there was a lot of my childhood growing up that not only was she not prepared for, she just didn't anticipate. Things went very differently with me than it did with her.
Sure.
In her time, in her generation.
Sure.
Sexuality was not, it wasn't in the mainstream media. It wasn't a part of the major culture at that time of her growing up. And so for her to see her little girl going through these changes,
Right.
I think that honestly, I don't believe that she thought that it was a thought in my mind that was going on in and through my body was actually really happening.
Right.
I don't think that she really knew that I was having curiosities and I had questions and I had thoughts, and I was exposed to pornography at a really young age, 4 or 5 years old, the first time I ever picked up a porn mag, and I flipped through every single page, and this was ongoing throughout my childhood, of videos being left in the VCR, press play thinking it was one of my videos, and and it wasn't.
That is not one of your videos.
It's not one of my videos. What are they doing? Wow,
Yeah.
that looks like it's, that looks fun. What are they doing? Why are they doing that?
So when you found the porn magazines, right, a really, really young age, and you looked, as you said, you looked through every page, was it a curiosity, like what is going on? Why does she look hurt? I mean, or, is this woman in pain? Let me check the
Right.
next couple of pages to see if she's okay. Was it curiosity, of I've never seen anything like this before?
I'll be very candid.
Yes.
It was shocking, but it was exciting. And I think that something that no parent really wants to have to deal with and faces is that the fact is that children are sexual beings. All people are sexual beings. We were created to be sexual beings. Now, to the extent of which we're exposed over time and how we're communicated what sexuality is, why it was created, and how it's to be used and stewarded is something that grows with time. But when you are overexposed at such a young age and you don't have the answers to fill in that space, all that you have is your physiological response.
Right.
And your physiological response to sex and sexual, depictions and acts is excitement. It's thrill, because that is what it is. And even a child can experience that.
Sure. Well, and yes, because it comes from a place of curiosity
Right.
and wonderment, if
Right.
you will.
Right.
Okay. Would you then say that you were sexualized from a young age?
I was.
Did you feel that being sexualized early on in life made you more open to giving away sex and, possibly being considered promiscuous at any point?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know for so many years that my sexuality was a gift, and after I had given it away for so long and so many times, I had let it come at a cost of me in such a deep way that I had lost touch with what intimacy and relationship was outside of sex. Intimacy. And I didn't know how to connect with people on an authentic
Right.
and real transparent level.
Right.
And I didn't know what that kind of vulnerability really looked like. And so I protected myself within the space where if I wanted to connect with somebody in a loving way, I used sex. And it left me feeling empty because I didn't actually walk away with anything else except the physical act. There was no buildup, there was no real connection, there was no trust. There was just sex.
So you realized what you once thought was power, giving sex,
Right.
was my way to gain power.
Right.
And in fact, it was the opposite. It left you weak and empty. How did you make those changes in your life then? How did that come to be that you're like, you know what? This is the problem. I need to exit out.
So I think, for me, learning to surrender that part of my life and make a personal choice to walk in celibacy until, I'm within the context of which, I'm healthy enough to, be in the kind of relationship with somebody where I know that I can bond on a very intimate and spiritual level without using sex. It came from, so many disappointments, so many heartbreaks, and so much desperation for deeper fulfillment. And it was a part of this purifying process, really, that took place about 1.5 years ago. And where I had, up until about 1.5 years ago, I had always been a very emotionally, reactive person, and someone that really needed to, control and manipulate my relationships and my and my surroundings and everything that you could see on the outside to make everything look as though it were all well within, when really I was desperate and I was crying out inside. And it came to a head 1.5 years ago when my ex-boyfriend had left me after 2.5 years in a home with my son. And my car broke down, and I was losing my home, and I didn't know where I was going to go, and it was just me and my son. And so I came to this place in my life where I was being purified and stripped of everything on the outside and forced to have to look inward. I lost my dog in that process when I had to move out of my home. I had to foster her and give her up for adoption. And then on moving day, I broke my wrist picking up the first box, and then I lost my job a few days later. There was nothing left.
I hope that's the end of the list. My goodness gracious.
That's
a lot.
That's the end of the list. It was the end of myself as I knew it. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it caused me to have to really take a fierce moral inventory on where I was at emotionally and spiritually, and what I needed to do to turn that around. And up until that point, I was trying to control everything. And part of that control was using sex to create intimacy, to hold space in my life for those things that I was desperately looking for within. Real connection, real deep friendship, relationship with people.
Right.
And so when I came out of that, and I woke up with my arm in a stent in the emergency room, and I'll be honest, I was a little twisted. They give you like the ketamine and the Dilaudid and all the painkillers and everything, but I had such clarity when I woke up from that minor surgery, such clarity that I woke up and the first thing out of my mouth was, "That's it. I'm going on a journey, and I'm never looking back, and I'm surrendering control of my life, and I'm going to have to put this all on God's plate, and God's going to have to be the one to take the wheel from here, because clearly I have no idea what I'm doing anymore." And that, to me, losing everything helped me gain everything, and my perspective had to change. And so then I had to make a choice to not only rebuild my life, but to also choose to focus on that which I was desperate for, and that was real relationship. And so I had to walk away from my sexuality, the physical act of it, in order to begin to create space in my life and in my heart for real relationship with people.
I so appreciate what you said a couple minutes ago about moral inventory. I had to take a minute to do moral inventory.
A fierce moral inventory.
I mean, it's really important, especially once in a while, that we do that with our mirror, right? And we take an inventory of our lives and see where we're at, where we need to grow, and absolutely. So many times, like, we're so busy putting that mirror at somebody else and not at ourselves, and we don't grow. Maybe in judgment. Now, you were recently engaged, is that correct?
Yeah.
And
hardly. Didn't last long.
We call that Hollywood engagement.
Yeah.
Sorry, Hollywood. Were you guys able to maintain celibacy together?
No. No, because of that real thirst and desire for intimacy and connection that I've had in my life, I had actually taken a step back from my celibacy because I got to be very honest. I thought that I was approaching something, and I'm almost 30. I have a 7-year-old son. I want a family. I want to be married, and I took back the reins on my life and decided that I was going to be the one in control, and that I was going to make the choices for my future, and that I was going to start now.
Who did you take the reins back from when you say that you took the reins back?
I took the reins back from the Lord. And I said, I'm going to do what I want to do because this feels good.
And the Lord should be in control.
Absolutely.
And so you try to take over and make those decisions and X, Y, and Z. So celibacy fell on the side of the road.
It did.
Now, do you regret that, or you've learned? Are you back on the road to celibacy?
I don't regret it because I learned, and I'm back on the road to celibacy.
And your goal is not to have sex until marriage. Is that correct as well?
Yes, that's my goal. And that's my goal because it keeps me clear.
Right.
It keeps my focus and my intention on relinquishing control to my higher power. It allows me to be able to see in my partner what I need to see in order to choose them, to actually choose them.
And not just sex or lust.
Lust, sex, everything that's involved, the heightened, physical aspect of it, the spiritual bond and connection that comes with it. All of that enhances everything for me in such a supernatural way. It's a supernatural gift.
Yeah.
Sure. It really is.
Sure.
And when you share sex within the context of someone that you love and are committed to, it becomes a very deep thing. And then so easily things fly over.
It can get complicated.
And you miss the red flags. and you begin to make pardon and way for your partner in areas that otherwise you may not, because you've already compromised in this area.
Sure.
May as well compromise for that.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing this. This is like really, really highly important, and unfortunately something that's not discussed enough. I'm going to ask you, is there anything that you want to say? Anything that you want to add more that you would like to, contribute and say on this subject, or about your life, or any of this, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that really, first and foremost, I want to say that sex is beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. It's a gift. And it's a gift that really needs to be a personal choice on how you're going to steward it. I think that for me, in my journey, because I was so overexposed and then over-sexualized at such a young age and not understanding what it was, I had to make a choice to take back the years that I gave myself in a way that I was unaware of, and give dignity back to the little girl in me by choosing celibacy. And so I know that's not a walk for everybody. It's really not. But for me, it is, because it gives me back the space within the little girl in me to feel as though I have control and I have power over the beautiful things within me that I get to choose to share with the right one. It's so important for me. And so it's not to diminish that beautiful gift for anybody else and how they choose to use it at all. But I would encourage people to really consider, from what space are you giving that? Are you giving that because you feel that that's maybe the only way you'll be loved?
Fair.
The only way you'll be accepted? I know that for me, I went through years feeling so ashamed for who I was and the choices that I was making, that I continued to use it as a way to feel intimacy with others, simply because if they knew the real me, they might not want me. So I may as well take what I can get, even if it's just for one night.
Whitney, so beautifully well said. Thank you so much for sharing it. For me personally, a lot of what you said hits home, and it, like I said, is such an important topic to talk about. Thank you so much for being so open and honest and giving of your story. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me share my story. It really gives so much love and space back to the little girl in me. And I know so many people have share those same wounds, and I want them to know that there's victory too on the other side. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Let's explore together.